Stay tuned, folks. This is part 2 of the standard J-1 project. Moving on from the longeron steaming that we did last time. We're going to talk about that, where we're at, and some of the other things connected to the project that I'm working on. Hello everybody, I'm Ken Kellett. I'm working on Kermit Weeks' standard J1 project that we've been working on here for a while. We're making some progress. Behind me you can see the longerons came out of the steaming perfectly. They bent like they were supposed to. I then went ahead and cut them and fit them to fit the tail post on one end of the airplane and the motor front mount there for the radiator up on the front. So we kind of tied in the rear and the front, and now we're working in between. So I've come and put all the fittings you see are all now in place where they're supposed to be. And pretty soon here we're going to be putting in all the cross members, the vertical members and cross members that go into the airplane. And I've actually decided on some of them, which are made out of ash, to go ahead and make new ones, and this is one of them I made yesterday. A lot of the wood in the airplane, especially the ash members, which are up in the nose of the airplane, a lot of them have a lot of oil and grease kind of embedded in them, and so at this point it's probably just as easy to just make new parts as it is to try to refurbish what we've actually got. So that's kind of my process right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if we go ahead and make the decision to just remake all of the verticals, the ones that are out of spruce. That won't take really all that much time, so we may as well do that. So we'll see what our decision is going to be on that. But so far we're making good progress. I will show you here in a second a new firewall that we're building for the airplane. Again, the original firewall is pretty badly corroded. So at this point, we're going to have a new fuselage. We might as well up that a little bit and put a new firewall on it as well. So all the fittings have been put in place. It's been checked that the landing gear will fit, that the top center section will fit. So those are kind of the two major things, and the fact that it's tied in front and back, it all fits at this point. So some of the cutting was very crucial to get it right. We only had one shot at it, and we managed to do that without screwing up. So we are making good headway on the project. Okay, these are some of the fittings. We powder coated these rather than painted them, and the powder coating, which is really the best thing we could do to really encapsulate them with paint so that they're going to be preserved in the future. The problem with that is the thickness of the powder coating is just a little bit more than paint, and so I had to go back and really hand sand all the longerons from front to back just for that little extra bit so that the fittings would slide on. So there was a little bit of work involved in that, but now that all the fittings have been slid on, I've varnished where the fittings go, and the reason for that is that if I had varnished the longerons before I put the fittings on, I would have had a dickens of a time getting all those fittings to slide on without fighting them. I fought them enough already. So that's the purpose here. Now their location is really marked, but the jig itself will hold the cross members, which will verify where everything is supposed to be. So once all the new pieces are put in, then we'll start tying it all together with the wires, and that's really going to be a big job. There's over 100 some cross bracing wires that are all going to have to be made new, and so that's going to be a bit of a process to get it all tied in and rigged before we start dismembering the jig and removing it. And so the important thing was to make sure that all these fittings, once they were drilled again, you're only going to get one shot at this to get it right, so that the landing gear bolts into the fuselage properly, and of course that the center section again attaches where it's supposed to, down on the top. Remember, the airplane at this point is upside down. So and this of course is one of the members that I've made, just trial fitting it, sliding it in here. All the holes in the old pieces, some of them are pretty wallered out, which you can kind of see in that. So I'm going to wait to drill these until I can drill them off of the fittings to make sure that they're right where they're supposed to be. Normally I could just lay that on there and drill it, but these holes are getting to be a little bit on the loose side. So we want to make sure that the things are going to be where they're supposed to be. Here are the wires all laid out. Of course they were all tagged, so they're divided from station 1 to station 10. So these are all the wires, and again they are going to have to come apart and be redone. The fittings that were used on the airplane, this is a micro press fitting, which is interesting that they chose to do that. This is supposed to use a knurl. So we've got to replace all those. So we'll be making all new wires. There's, I think, 100 plus wires here. So it'll be quite a process to take them apart. Some of the parts have to be CAD plated, so there's going to be some delay in getting this stuff sent out and CAD plated before we can actually put them all back together. But the important thing is to not lose track of what wire goes in what spot, because you would really have some issues there. The drawings that we have, I looked at them last week, and they are almost impossible to read as to what the dimensions are supposed to be. So what we've got is what we've got. So we need to make sure that we kind of keep everything pretty close dimensionally, and we'll see. One of the other things I put together last week was this is one of the rudder bars that goes in the airplane, and these are the little straps that your foot go in so your feet don't slip off of the rudder bar. And so that worked out really well. We had a real expert leather person make us up some straps. He's now making up for the front rudder bar, which we had to make new as well. In the airplane, this was a square steel tubing, which is not correct, so we had to make a new one. And as soon as we get our leather parts back, we'll be completing that as well. So we're jumping around a little bit, but like all airplane project, it's all got to be done, so it doesn't really matter what you're working on as long as you're working on something. So now we'll come over and we'll take a look at the firewall. These are the firewall assemblies for the airplane. This is the original. It's got some creases in it. It's badly corroded. Holes poked in it that we don't know what the holes are for. And so we just decided it's time to just make a new one. So this is our attempt here at a new firewall, which was really challenging to get this bend that the original had. And we actually were able to get that done. We had to build some patterns here for bending it over. And so that's what we do to make that work. At a certain point here, we've got to roll a bead in. According to the drawings, it's got this reinforcement bead that goes in there. There's a few holes that get cut, and then some bends get put in here and up there, and then we should be done. That should complete the firewall, and then we'll see when we get to the airplane that it's going to fit. Hopefully it will, because we've patterned it off of this one. We've checked it with the original drawings. Everything checks out, so hopefully it's going to fit right in there where it's supposed to. Let me see. Okay, that kind of brings us up to date on the project right now. Obviously, this wire business is going to be time consuming, and there's going to be some other factors involved in sending this stuff off for CAD plating and whatnot, so we're going to drag here a little bit. We'll probably finish up the firewall on the airplane, and We'll be waiting for the next challenge, but pretty soon here we'll be assembling the fuselage, and that should be interesting. So we'll see what happens in the next installment. So until then, stay tuned.